Dang, look at that map design. It's literally just a strange looking circle. I don't know why future Mario developers even tried after this point. It's perfection. It's peak game design. It's peak fiction. Welcome, disciples of the internet, to the Forest of Illusion, a bamboozling jungle that brings out my inner love of circles. I don't know where that bit came from, something just took over me for a second there. And now for the obligatory recap. In this series, I'm recreating every level from Super Mario World and Super Mario Maker 2 on a one-to-one basis as well as I possibly can. The fifth world of Super Mario World, as I mentioned before, is the Great Forest of Illusion, packed with 9 levels, most of them with their own secret exits. And all of these secret exits are exactly made equal, as you will see. And if you want the 4 worlds leading up to this one in Mario Maker 2, click on the reference card in the corner of the screen so you can start at the beginning of the series. And one more absolutely shameless promotion before the video begins: make sure to subscribe and toll the notification bell to view even more jelly-soaked content. Forest of Illusion 1. As you'll most likely know at this point in the series, the jungle theme comes pre-packaged with a moat of water at the bottom of the screen, barring any chance for bottomless pits to be featured in the level. But we in fact can have our cake and eat it too by changing the theme to night, which turns the water into poison that acts the exact same as lava. The only downside is that I no longer have the trees, so I created these nice looking decorative mushroom trees. And whenever a tree is in the foreground and not the background, I removed the ground blocks at that location and replaced them with the semi-transparent one-way doors, to give the illusion that these trees are set in front of the player. And for most of the level, the changes are purely visual, until the enemies begin to straight up break out of their boxes. You see, in Super Mario World, enemies don't comply to their yellow constraints, and tracks will work to replicate this phenomenon, as tracks put enemies at a different layer than the ground. So the Goombas and Koopas just fall into the void. So for now, the enemies just have to rest in their boxes until the player lets them out. The secret exit for this level is usually accessed via a P-balloon, which is now basically impossible to achieve as the P-balloon doesn't wear out over time. So if you want to reach the secret exit that badly, you have to pull off an epic pro gamer cape feather move. Forest of Illusion 2, typical cramped and slow Super Mario World water level. Its one claim to fame being the introduction of this basic urchin enemy that moves in predictable straight lines. And also this whistling charging Chuck, but I don't really care about his inclusion. The urchin itself is 2 blocks wide, which makes this one wide block track set these spike balls ever so slightly off center, which will never stop being mildly annoying to me. That's really all this level has to offer, aside from the secret exit where you have to discern a semi-solid from the actual wall tiles, which is so much easier now that the semi-solids are much more dynamic in Mario Maker 2. Blue Switch Palace. Finally, the last Switch Palace, so I no longer have to recreate the same rooms over and over again. Super Mario World actually has 2 different P-switches that both perform different functions. The blue one acts like normal and turns blocks into coins and coins into blocks, while this gray one has this weird little gimmick where it turns enemies into these temporary gray coins. Since the purpose of this switch is to incapacitate all enemies in an area, I used a POW block to remove the spinies instead. And yes, I did spice up the exterior with as much blue decor as I possibly could. Forest of Illusion 3, all of the enemies aside from this charge and Chuck at the end of the level are trapped in these bubbles and pop out when they come in contact to any form of terrain. I gave every single enemy in this level parachutes as it enables them to move predictably, and they do stop once they come in contact with ground terrain. This level also features the hardest and most cryptic 1-up in the game, where you have to hit these 4 blocks in a specific order to be awarded with said 1-up. Now the 1-up only requires 1 block to be hit, but I'm not really complaining. It also seems that as levels go on, the secret exits are getting less and less creative. All you have to do is enter this pipe and at least have your super form so you have the weight to break these blocks and nab the key. Forest Ghost House. It only makes sense that the Forest of Illusion would have its own ghost house level, one that starts out with an odd tunnel section that leads to 2 massively open areas that makes the ghost house feel like more of a ghost warehouse. This level has no new ghost themed enemies to offer, as even the Boo Ocean we've already seen before. The secret exit is also quite simple, as it is hidden like 10 blocks after the normal one. And oh yeah, obligatory Boo Buddies reference. Forest Evolution 4, rounding out the circle of main levels for this area. This one focuses on Lakitus, both on clouds and inside pipes. And since some pipes spout out spinies faster than others, it doesn't take long for the player to be simply overwhelmed by enemies. This level is also home to one of those unique stretchy pipes, but as long as Mario can't fit down one of them, the hard block track routine works just fine. Like so many of the other levels in this game, this level is too long for one sub-area, and since one of the secret sub-areas in this level is underwater, I put blue dotted line blocks and put Cheep Cheeps on tracks to give the illusion of the player being underwater. And the concept of the secret area has now been stripped down to its base form. You don't even need a super mushroom this time, you just need to enter this pipe. For a secret area, I think the funniest thing about this level is how the background is constantly moving around, even if the player is standing still, which implies that the entire level, including the ground itself, is spinning at terminal velocity. This level revolves around the player jumping between platforms while dodging Paracoopas, and since you can't pass tracks through each other, one platform will have to stick near the bottom of the screen, and one will always have to stick near the top. Past the goalpost are some 1-ups that are purely stationary and refuse to move, which is odd, but nothing that tracks won't fix. Forest Fortress, yet another secret fortress, one that starts off with the return of the hammers that try to crush you from the ceiling. Instead of using those inconsistent hard block platforms, this is now the skewer room, which I have been told is a better solution after I posted the first video. It does make the room a tad bit more dangerous now that the sides of the hammers are deadly on contact. What makes this room even harder is how the saws are now 1 block wider and taller, making the first room of this level a major difficulty spike compared to all of the other levels I've made so far. The next room is far more simple as objects that fall off tracks can be caught by other tracks. The quote-unquote secret exit of this level involves a frantic cape feather glide over a lava bubble infested moat. The reward for this feat is 9 whole 1-ups, which is kind of lame in Mario Maker 2 as you can only be awarded with 3 1-ups per level. And the boss fight for this level are the Resnors, who are exactly the same as any level they've ever been in. So I treat them with the exact same quadruple Goombrat and key door move. Roy's Castle, probably my least favorite level in this entire game, just because it features long snake block sections and nobody likes snake blocks. I switched the color of the snake blocks to blue to speed it up from the sloth-like green blocks, and since Mario Maker 2 puts a limit on how long a snake block path can be, some parts where the snake blocks travel backwards will have to be cut off. Skipping the snake block section leads to some Bowser statues that shoot slow-moving fireballs. My personal enemy pick to replace them is the blue Mecha Koopa, which resembles a Koopa, shoots a horizontal projectile, and is conventionally unkillable. The boss fight against Roy is also exactly the same as Morton's back in World 2. The boss arena does get smaller, and there are some clever ways to replicate that in Mario Maker 2, but there is no way to set it to where it gets smaller every time that you hit Roy, so I just chose to opt for not including it at all. So, you know, scratch yet another infantile reptile off the hit list. So that was all 9 levels from the Forest of Illusion represented in Super Mario Maker 2. Now that the in-depth recap of each level is finished, it is now time for the ranking of each level based on how accurate their new versions are to the original game. Number 9, Forest Fortress. Number 8, Roy's Castle. Number 7, Forest of Illusion 3. Number 6, Forest of Illusion 4. Number 5, Forest of Illusion 1. Number 4, Forest of Illusion 2. Number 3, Forest Ghost House. Number 2, Blue Switch Palace. And number 1, Forest Secret Area. I do sincerely hope you've enjoyed my recreation of the Forest of Illusion from Super Mario World and Super Mario Maker 2, and if you want to see more levels from Super Mario World made in Super Mario Maker 2, or just want to see more jelly-infused sleep paralysis demon fuel, stick around.